Lowe, and you've probably seen me on a ton of YouTube videos for Music Man guitars. I'll be using my loop model for this whole video, and with the Clint Moody Band all over YouTube. And this is actually not a demo video per se, as much as it is my computer science professor asked us question about how technology and computer software and hardware has affected our industry, which the recording and music industry is a very loaded question. You could talk about the recording software, you could talk about the USB keyboard software, so I decided to thin the topic down a little bit and talk about one specific piece of hardware and piece of software that are pretty much interchangeable with other brands. I'm actually using line 6, and this is the hardware that we're talking about, the gearbox, which is actually nothing more than an input-output device for USB. And if you can get a close-up on the program, I'm using a program called Gearbox that was designed, we started the initial design. I was in very early stages of it when I was still at line 6, but what it is it's digital modeling, and how it's changed everything is you take a look over here on the side of the room, and you're looking at a typical studio setup where you're talking about an old analog tape, and even the early stages of computer recording, where you still mic'd an amplifier. You had to take effects in, and normally it was a rack or a pedal board, and you better take in more than one amp, and I still to this day take in several guitars just to get different tones. But this is just your typical example, plus you've got to mic the amplifier, which normally took at least 2 people if you really wanted it to be a pain, because you've got an engineer who has to listen to the sound coming through the board, and then you've got me in the other room playing so you can hear the sound, and hopefully you can sometimes have a third person who's moving that microphone on the speaker. And then if you've got more amplifiers, this could take sometimes a couple hours just to get your guitar tone set up. Well, what line 6 did was basically invented software like the tone port software, gearbox software that I'm using here, which is basically a variation of the pod software that came out and the amp farm software that came out in 1996 for DigiDesign that line 6 did, which was essentially called a plug-in. And what it did was it allowed me to go through the interface, and like I said, you've got your line 6 interface. You also have interfaces such as your inbox that the producing students get. There are tons of interfaces out there. There are also tons of programs out there, I think. So like I'm just using line 6 as an example. But it allows me to have all of my amplifiers mic'd up with all of the effects that are on the board, except I'm going through the computer. Now this won't sound like I'm going through a 412 cabinet to our ears, because I'm going through a 5.1 surround sound computer system, but whichever way you look at it, that's a pretty convincing Marshall style tone. And to make this demo easy, what I've done is I went ahead and set up some other patches just to show you that I can go from a real crunchy sound to a really nice pretty chorusy, and I can go up and I can use all these controls just like an amp if I want to put more distortion into it. So essentially the software goes in and makes the CPU think, okay, I am an amplifier. And when I call up different programs and change my amplifiers, like I'm going now from a deluxe reverb to more of a Soldano, or not Soldano, but more of a Tweed style amp, a Tweed bassman type amp. And that bassman's going to act exactly like a real Fender bassman would. When I turn the presence knob up, the presence is going to increase. When I turn it down, it's going to turn down. I also, if you can zoom in, have control over the miking that we were talking about earlier. I can choose what type of mic I want to use, like the 421 dynamic microphone. I can choose mic placement, where I want that microphone to be in the room on that speaker cabinet at the time. So this is how computer technology and software and hardware has changed the way we record guitar. I don't have to go into, now I'll go into a major session and I'll still carry real amplifiers, and most major studios will still have real amplifiers, but I have done major sessions, I've been on Cashbox, on nothing more than this type of software. And guitarists who are afraid of it need to learn it, because it's in every major studio out there. Everyone has amp farm, everyone has pods, everyone has some form of guitar simulator program, including the simulator programs being built into recording programs like Amp Farm, like the guitar simulator program built into GarageBand. It makes your life easier. I can go to a demo writer session and just take this and go. I don't have to take anything but my guitars and my computer. But it is in every studio, and every major amplifier manufacturer is going in that direction now. Sure, they're still using tubes, but they're also using this type of technology. So it's definitely changed the way we look at guitar. My name's Brian Lowe, and thanks for taking the time to listen.